Sheikh Mohammed al-Yaqoubi was once imam at the Grand Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, but during the uprising he spoke out against the Assad regime and was forced to flee. In exile, Sheikh Yaqoubi is among the more than 100 Muslim religious leaders who signed a letter saying that it was a sin for any Muslim to join ISIS. And as I mentioned a moment ago, he recently led prayers at the service of Peter Kasich in Indiana. Thanks very much for joining us, Sheikh Mohammed Yaqoubi.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Now, I don't think a lot of listeners are probably familiar with the Grand Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, but it looks like one of the great places of faith in the world. Could you just mention a few of the particulars about it?
Yes, this is one of the oldest mosques in the world and one of the largest. And what distinguishes it is John the Baptist is buried in it. So it is commonly used and visited by Muslims and Christians. John the Baptist is Prophet Yahya of Islam, greatly honored in the Muslim tradition.
And, I mean, it's a great, big, beautiful mosque. What was it like to leave a place like that? How did you come to decide, I've got to speak out and I'm going to leave this great place?
Well, first of all, it's like leaving your spirit. It's not an easy thing to leave a place where you're born and you crawled. And the Grand Umayyad Mosque is unique because we have a community around it within a quarter square mile around the Grand Umayyad Mosque. We have the Christian community, the Jewish community, the Shiite community who lived side by side without any tension, without any trouble, like brothers, like one family. I had to speak up condemning murder and killing. And this is what the Assad regime started from the beginning in order to suppress its own people. The Assad regime has been suppressing its people for 50 years, since 1963, the Ba'ath Revolution or coup d'etat. And people paid a huge price, like in 1982, 40,000 people were killed in the city of Hama in the middle of Syria. So we didn't want to be considered like silent killers. If we keep silent, one has to condemn killing, at the same time offer a solution. We offer the solution to the regime to put on trial people who were responsible for murdering peaceful demonstrators, to let out of prison all political prisoners, and to allow people in exile to return to their country. And the regime didn't want to hear this voice. We had to flee to escape with our lives.
Now, did it occur to the people who were participating in the uprising that President Assad had strong allies in Iran and Russia, and that people were not going to intervene in Syria, that the United States, that the West, that other countries in the Arab world, they were not really going to help out in Syria, and that things would only go so far?
Well, it is unfortunate that the Assad regime still exists and still killing people in Syria. After 3.5 years or more of the uprising, we have almost 200,000 people have been killed, recognized by the UN in their statistics. This is a killing machine, killing 150 people every day. The international community thinks matters are complicated. They didn't really calculate how things would progress, especially with people coming from around the world, finding a ground, these extremists, in order, on the pretext that Assad is killing its own people. They wanted to fight Assad, but actually they wanted to reach their own targets by establishing extremism and trying to fight the West on our land, these foreign fighters coming from all around the world. So we ended up now having Assad regime killing our own people and having ISIS killing our own people also from all backgrounds.
Now, what do you make of the way the West is diagnosing this? Because right now the United States is helping fight ISIS, but it only started fighting ISIS when it moved into Iraq and started taking great amounts of land and threatened Kurdistan. But really, ISIS had been in Iraq in Syria for a long time, and so had a bunch of other militant groups that almost have similar pedigrees.
Well, the West was too late, to be honest. The West thought that there's no substitute for Assad. They were happy with Assad in power. They thought the opposition is not suitable or not ready to succeed Assad. So they let Assad do whatever he wanted with his own people, not calculating the risks of that. And the risks were actually with ISIS growing and other groups growing and taking revenge from the Syrian people, and then, of course, expanding to Iraq, as you mentioned, highlighted. And it's now, I believe, too late for the West to contain everything together unless serious military action is taken against Assad and ISIS together. And here comes our solution. We say that unless Assad is in power, as long as Assad is in power, there won't be any end to ISIS. The West wants to get rid of ISIS. We tell them, unite the Syrian people, get rid of Assad and the 200 top criminals in his regime, and then Syrians will be united, the state will be preserved, and its institutions are preserved, the army will be united again, and then you have a great power, the Syrian people all together united, and then they will fight ISIS. And they don't need at that time any ground troops. Syrians will do the job on their own.
Now, this sounds like a philosophy that's advocated by the president of Turkey, President Erdogan, who's been on the sidelines basically with the United States' effort to fight ISIS because he wants to fight Assad.
Well, it's not him who wants to fight Assad. The Syrian people want to get rid of Assad. Don't forget that we have half the population of Syria, 9 million people are displaced, and you have 4 million living in tents in this freezing weather now. They are living in tents in refugees camps, and you have 500,000 Syrians wounded, being treated or having been treated in hospitals, and 200,000 killed. What are we waiting for? This is the tragedy of the century, which, according to the UN standards, and the exodus of the Syrian people is the biggest, the largest since World War II.
Is the equation for the United States, though, still the same? It would upset Iran. We've got big deals with Iran cooking on their nuclear program. It would upset Russia. We've got enough problems with that already, too.
Well, I think if they don't care about democracy and human rights and the establishment of justice, then, of course, it goes that way. But I believe America was based on justice, established on justice, and seeking justice and establishing justice around the world is one of the major goals of the great America, USA, United States of America, and people in the Middle East would be looking at it from that angle.
You're listening to Worldview on WBEZ. I'm Jerome McDonnell, speaking with Sheikh Mohammed Al-Yacoubi. He was once imam at the Grand Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, but he was forced to flee out after speaking out against the Assad regime. Now, it's interesting that you had this letter where you and 100 other Muslim religious leaders signed this letter saying it was a sin for any Muslim to join ISIS. How much effect does a letter like that have?
Well, first of all, the impact on al-Baghdadi himself probably is not that much, but what we aimed at is the Muslim population around the world, especially those young people who have a lot of enthusiasm. Maybe they are disadvantaged and they are thinking, or they're angry, they have some anger, so we addressed them. In this letter, we refuted the ideological foundation of what is called Islamic State, the establishment of the caliphate and the principle of apostasy, where they accuse every other Muslim of being apostate, and then they try to take their wealth and kill them, behead them, and also the treatment of non-Muslims. Because, I mean, it's a fact that Muslims and non-Muslims lived side by side in that region for centuries. Damascus is the oldest city in the world that has been continually inhabited for 10,000 years. And Christians, Yazidis in the north of Syria and in Iraq, and the Shiites, the Alawites, which is the minority in power in Syria, they lived side by side. There was no wars between them, and there was no tension between them at any point in history. Individual incidents do not count in this regard. Now, why ISIS, on what ideological basis comes ISIS now to tell us that these people have to be extradited or killed. This is totally non-Islamic. The Muslims actually ruled, the Ottomans ruled, and did not extradicate or kill or behead or enslave any of these. Some oppression might have been exerted on them, but not to kill them, eradicate them, or even enslave them, or not even just force them in exile. So what ISIS is doing is non-Islamic. We quoted the Quran and we refuted their misquotes from the book, the Holy Book of Islam. We quoted the words of Prophet Muhammad that refutes their claims. We have interaction between Muslim Jewish communities and the Christian communities in that region from as early as the time of Prophet Muhammad and later on his followers.
Now, it seems like the people who have a positive view of ISIS in the Arab world, in the region, is actually really low. I mean, even in a country like Saudi Arabia, only 5% of the people say that they have a positive view of ISIS. The people generally do not have a positive view of them, but they have enough positive elements to muscle up an army.
I beg your pardon, could you repeat, please?
Do you think that the rest of the Arab world is doing a good job at trying to explain what ISIS is really all about to their populations?
No, I totally agree with you on this question, because there's not enough done in mainstream media to educate our people. We don't have enough propaganda or enough educational programs to explain what Islam is about, especially in the West also, because you see here the bulk of the recruits of ISIS are coming from Europe, from the West, or from some Arab countries like Tunisia and Libya, and there's not enough education in these countries, in the media, to tell Muslims the truth about Islam, the Islamic Caliphate, and the dream of which Islamic State is using, like building an Islamic State. This is totally, I mean, we have Islamic State. Syria is an Islamic State. 80% of the legislations in Syria before the uprising are Islamic. We don't need, it's non-Islamic to behead people in that way, and it's anti-Islam now to establish Islamic penalties in that way. When someone is caught smoking, they cut his fingers. This is non-Islamic. No one single jurist in Islam would agree on this. And so on also with the Islamic penalties, like cutting the hand for thieves or so. Muslim jurists, and I wrote a book about this, that this cannot be established. This is not the ruling of God. This is not God's will on the face of the earth. So this is why ISIS is non-Islamic, anti-Islam, is coming just to use some of the verses from the Quran, misinterpret them in a literalist way and address just the commons, the ignorant people. So the ulama should be given opportunities to appear in the media and explain the right position of Islam.
Sheikh Mohammed al-Yaqoubi was once imam at the Grand Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, and we're talking to him about ISIS and the situation in Syria. Now, you were in Indiana and recently led prayers at the service for Peter Kasich there. What was that experience like?
It was, wallahi, I swear by God, it's one of the most emotional moments in my life, to meet these two great parents of Abdul Rahman, Peter Kasich, and see their courage and their trust in God and how calm they were, trying just to continue the legacy of their son. Because you see here the point, probably the United States of America as a government could not come to the rescue of the Syrian people, but Abdul Rahman, Peter Kasich, as an individual American, he sacrificed his life for the sake of the Syrian people because he saw the tragedy and he did not want to walk away. That was his words. He didn't want to walk away. In knowing the risks, he took every step in order just to be with Syrians. He trained over 100 Syrians for medical aid in Syria. His legacy is going to continue. He's a great hero, and he'll be remembered by us in Syria and by the world.
Do you have any advice to Americans who are frustrated by what they've seen in Syria, by the killing that has gone on for so long, and yet feel like they can do nothing about it? Do you have some ideas for people?
Yes. Number one, they should speak to the congressmen, so that there should be some pressure on the Obama administration to take serious action. I do not advise anyone of going to Syria for help. The risk is so high, and there's no safety guaranteed at all. So we don't need fighters in Syria. Foreign fighters in Syria actually caused more damage than any help, even with good intentions sometimes. What we need leverage in the political arena, that the legislators in the Congress can exert some pressure on the American administration that serious action should be taken to topple Assad and reunite the Syrian people together against terrorism.
Sheikh Mohammed al-Yaqoubi was once imam at the Grand Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, and he spoke out against Assad and was forced to flee early in the conflict. He recently signed a letter along with 100 other Muslim religious leaders that said it was a sin for any Muslim to join ISIS. Thanks a lot for joining us and talking about the situation in Syria.
Thank you.